it's time to tear some stuff down and build it back up again, stronger and better than before. And along the way, I'm going to answer some questions. Welcome. I am Pete. This is the Ponding Pete. Yeah, this is a Q&A and Tetris tear down and build back up because I haven't done that in this place yet, so we're going to do it. And the last video I did ages and ages ago seemed to do well, so. Algorithm. So, you guys had some questions. I'm going to start out with one specific question that I figured was easy to address first from Ryan from Seeking Stories. He's a good friend. He was asking me to show off all the Lego heads and everything, so I figured it'd be a good time to show off the, I don't know, just knick-knack-knackery stuff that I have just randomly floating around my background from time to time, because I do like to move it, because I think it's really hilarious just to move things. Easter eggs. This one's Iron Man. I picked this up because I was like, oh, if there's Iron Man, there might be some more Avengers. No, there wasn't. I was kind of sad that Iron Man was the only Avenger that got made. Now we have some Venom and Carnage ones, which I'm kind of like, about. I wish they made more of like the Avengers. They made some more. X-Men would be dope. For the Lego head, don't do that. For the Lego heads, we also have a good Stormtrooper and Boba Fett. I recently got the Stormtrooper, and I decided to start doing a tiki head thing with them and start just putting them on top of each other, because that was easier than having 3 lined up in a row. That would take up too much space. Too much horizontal space. So I decided to do this. Boba Fett was actually the first one I got. I pre-ordered it when they came out with them. I was like, yes, totally doing it. And I actually have another Stormtrooper as well, but that's at work. Because the Lego obsession? No, it's not an obsession. It's just I get them. So yeah, these are the Lego heads I have so far. I want to get all of them, specifically all the Star Wars ones, actually. Just the Star Wars ones. I'm not a big fan of some of the other ones. What else do I have? I have 2 ducks. I don't know how close these are. At one point, I just decided randomly. I didn't actually decide. I just did it because I had rubber bands on my wrist and I put them on this. But I put rubber bands around him, so now he's bondage duck and then just regular duck. There are stories behind these, but they're very long. Actually, they're not that long, but they have memories attached. So these guys are hovering around. Of course, one of the other big things you'll see is this Ahsoka saber. This is the Hasbro Black, I think it is, saber. So I have multiple lightsabers, actually. I have like 5 or 6 that I want to eventually get mounted on the wall that's behind the camera right now. But the wall is also covered with, not really entirely covered, but it's like a checkerboard of sound stuff. So yeah, I have this. This is really cool. It's changing colors. I wish I had a second one with a smaller blade, because Ahsoka is my favorite character in Star Wars. I think she's amazing. And I also think that the last 4 episodes of Clone Wars Season 8 is the best Star Wars we've ever had. Like, that's the best of Star Wars. So, come at me. I just think that. Speaking of Ahsoka, I also recently got an Ahsoka minifigure. If this isn't focusing, which it probably isn't, I'm going to put a picture of her here. Editing Pete. I have a random metal D20 that hovers around here as well. Because nerd. So I got this from Kraken Dice. The D20 is a Kraken. So that's dope. Focus. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with the focus right now. And I am too afraid to look. So we'll see how the focus looks when I go editing. Other things you will see. Oh. Our Lord and Savior. Dark Lord of the Sith. Instigator of the Clone Wars. Jar Jar Binks. Jar Jar is arguably the most diabolical Sith Lord to ever be on screen. But yeah, I saw this in Ollie's, and there was a bunch of them. I was like, oh, poor Jar Jar. So I got him because I was like, this is hilarious. So hilarity, weird jokes. That's basically me. It's like weird internet jokes. You may see hats from like Halloween and other things hovering around that you've seen before. I was like a steampunk snake oil salesman, essentially, last Halloween. And then you might see this, which, if you've been around for a while, you know what this is. This was my Lord Hermes hat from the Olympic Games readathon last June. Dope. So yeah, this I made this. I didn't make the other one, but I made this one. The last thing is also a new addition. This is probably one of my favorite presents I've gotten this year. It's a pen in a wooden pen box. It's like magnetic and stuff. And it has a quote on it that a friend of mine made. A friend of mine originated, which says, "Where magic thrives and dragons roam, in ink you'll always find a home," which is a dope quote. Yeah, I think all the quotes that I gave him from like Stormlight Archives and stuff were too long, so he came up with this, and I'm happy he came up with this because he's awesome. So yeah, because he knows I want to be a writer eventually. So this is. Yeah, I'm gonna try to find a place for this. There's 3 of these. There's one for R2-D2, one for this, and one for the Death Star. I might put the Death Star up because that's the most recognizable. I don't know how well this is going to show up on screen later. But yeah, it's like a nightlight LED thing that I think would be great for a backlight for me, because I've been needing a backlight for my, just because it's where it is. So I'm going to see if I can make a little cubby for this in the back as I build up this new thing. So yeah, that's the knackage, the knick-knack stuff. Let's start taking some stuff down. Alright, so I'm going to stop for a second and talk to you about the fun and interesting thing that is right here. So, as you can see, there is a gap between this dresser, this bookshelf, and this dresser. And how do I make it do that? I just wanted to explain to you before you guys freak out. They're like, oh my gosh, it's going to fall. Because it's not going to fall. Because physics is a thing that works occasionally. I have 2 boxes sitting right here. Alright. And these boxes essentially act like fulcrums. We're like, a seesaw, whatchamacadoodle. And because I have more weight, specifically most of the wheel of time, on this side of the box, it doesn't tip over. And because there's more weight here than there's over here, it doesn't tip over this way, it tips this way. I mean, it doesn't tip, but like more weight's over here, and then more weight's over here. So because there's more weight on the left side, it doesn't fall over in physics. It's also kind of braced as well. So like if it were to start tipping over, it would start tipping over onto this thing, and then that would stop it as well, at least that box. So yeah, I do. For those of you that are concerned that it's going to fall down, it's not. Especially because I have this is almost not the exact same setup. I had a similar setup on my old apartment, where I had a dresser and then I had 2 bookshelves on either side that kind of braced the chaotic Tetris so it didn't fall down either side. The books that do fall down are from the very top of this dresser, because I'll show it to you guys in a minute. But I have a bunch of Star Wars books that are on top of this bookshelf. And sometimes they do fall down. Occasionally. But very, very rarely, and there's only one that really falls down. So it's not like it's going to come crashing down. Like an avalanche. If there was an earthquake in Virginia, southeastern Virginia, then would they fall down? Yes, absolutely. But we've had one earthquake in the past 50 years or so, and I don't think it would have been big enough to knock it down. So I see the risk is low. Let's do 1 or 2 more questions. From Anitha Gade. Thank you for this. Stormlight or the Long Price Quartet. These are both very beloved fantasy worlds of me. I love them for different reasons. I do think I like LPQ more right now. For Brandon, because Stormlight is not a finished series, there's a lot of weight and emotion behind it, but it definitely could be worse if he chokes. Still got another 30 years till he's done with it, basically. I think LPQ as a finished series definitely trumps Stormlight. And because it's finished so well. Long Price Quartet, go read it. I have a video about it, like why you should read it. So if you haven't read it, go read it. It's awesome. Next question from Johanna. She asks, what do you ponder most in books? That varies. So recently, it's actually been a lot regarding leadership and governance. Specifically, like, as a king, as a president, as a whatever. Why do we govern the way we do? That sort of thing. And a lot of this has been fueled by Dune, because that's some of the questions that are asked in Dune. Specifically in Children of Dune and The God Emperor of Dune, which I am currently reading. There's some other books that have kind of fueled this, like Fireborn. Fireborn does a good job of kind of trying to delve into this. I'm trying to think of some other books that have been spurring this along. But I can't think of any right now. Probably have been. I think there have been. Maybe some Malazan books to a certain extent. Nah, not recently. Obliquely, but only because I've been looking for it. So yeah, that's recently kind of what I've been thinking about, pondering. It's been great. It definitely changes over time because, nature of just how thoughts roam. So if it definitely is interesting because I can like a book more because I am into the philosophical stuff that it's talking about. Like I'm actively looking into it versus if I'm not actively looking into it, I might, like it less. That's just kind of how our bias shapes us. Like if we're actively thinking about a thing, we're going to recognize it and appreciate more in books versus if we're not actively thinking about it or never have actively thought about it. It's up to the book to spark that activity in our brain, which I think is harder to do if you're being subtle. So it's a balance. It's an interesting balance. Next one from Fun Fantasy Books. She's great. She's a newer booktuber. Everybody that's a booktuber that has asked questions will be linked down below. Editing Pete hates me, but it's fine. Fun Fantasy Books. She's a newer booktuber. She's great. I just did a video reviewing one of the books she's read that was really cool for the Secret Santa, Fireborn. She asks, how do you manage to read all of those books? And I was looking at my stats for my TBR because I plan out my TBR and I record it in an Excel document, naturally. And I think the lowest month this year was January, where I read 2. I can't remember what my highest was, but I tend to read 6 or 7 books a month. And that's mostly A, because I make time, and then B, because I do read pretty fast. That's just a thing. That was something I developed from childhood, as well as probably being in my genes as well, but reading early and reading soon from childhood. When you approach a book, what is one thing that you want to find there? And this is from Uri Gott. He is a self-published author, Winds of Strife. I did do a review on this. Really great guy. Had a few talks with him. I don't think there's necessarily one thing, and it really depends on the book. But at my core, I just want a good story. And that's super vague, and I apologize. I want to see something that makes me think, makes me ponder, obviously. I want to see something that genuinely approaches topics, and I want to see something that honestly approaches things and doesn't do things for the sake of, I don't know, just because. Like, let's talk about Star Wars. One of the things that's irritated me with Rey specifically is I'm not a big fan of Mary Sue just because. I think she was a Mary Sue that knew all these things, and it was breaking, and it was lore breaking throughout all 3 movies. Like she was created to be a better Luke. Hi, editing Pete cutting in because I end up going on a tangent that makes no sense whatsoever and actually goes completely away from the whole why I dislike the sequels part. So I figured I'd explain it a little bit. The very core of it is the sequels had no plan, and the directors refused to have a plan that coincided with each other. It started off with Force Awakens, which was only okay. It was a rehash of Episode 4, which was kind of a red flag, but we just didn't see it because we were just so Like, oh my gosh, Star Wars, it didn't do anything new. And then we get Rian Johnson. It's like, I'm going to do something new. And you know what? There was a small bit of hope there. Like, oh, we're going to do something new. Good. We want something new. But Rian Johnson decided to just screw it all, and I'm going to piss all over everything. I know there are a lot of people out there that like The Last Jedi. I did not, because I felt like it was deliberately irreverent of Star Wars for being irreverent sake, for irreverence sake. I accept that The Last Jedi was probably a good movie, but it wasn't a good Star Wars movie because he didn't do Star Wars well. And I know that sounds kind of contradictory because I'm like, you need to do Star Wars, but you can't do it. But we want something new. It's like, nah. Rian Johnson did not have any respect for the Star Wars franchise. And he deliberately wanted to mess up everything that came before. Like J.J. Abrams literally gave him a list of like things that he was trying to set up that were like, some of it was cool, some of it was cool, like Snoke and a bunch of other stuff. And Rian Johnson's like, no, I'm going to ruin all of this. Like the whole like, oh, Rey is a nobody that the Force chose. That was actually, that was an interesting plot point. But of course it wasn't followed up on. And it also wasn't something that was planned from the very beginning. And I think Rey's story could have been a lot different if she was not a carbon copy of Luke, but better. Finn getting screwed over is also a thing that highly, highly disappointed me with these movies. Like, I wish just they pulled this whole bait and switch with him that was just absolutely horrible. That was horrible. Like, his character had so much more potential if they actually, like, started doing something with him in, like, you know, the second movie. Or even the first, doing something more with him in the first movie. The concept of a ex-stormtrooper going after the Empire or something like that, like, that's a great concept. It was executed very poorly. There are things in the movies that's like, oh yeah, you're killing stormtroopers now. These are your buddies, right? You're just gonna automatically just start killing them again? Killing the people that arguably were your brothers? How does that work? No emotional, no second guessing yourself? Just, oh my gosh, these are horrible. His story wasn't handled with any nuance, which is the irritating part. But yeah, lack of the plan just turned into lack of a story in the end. When you don't have a plan, you can't necessarily make a good story, especially in something when you're doing it over 3 books. Now, I understand there's such thing as pantsers in books, and you know that can turn into a good story, but that's a completely different, you know, process than doing a trilogy of movies, because each individual movie might be a good story, quote unquote, but as a whole, they all suck. Rise of Skywalker, complete trash, and they could have avoided that pretty easily if they had known what to look for. AKA, look at the Dark Empire comics and look at the fan reaction to that. There are a lot of issues with the sequels, and them not having a plan is the biggest one in the end. That screwed them over and cascaded through so much of why the sequels are my least favorite Star Wars movies. Let's get to more thingy things. So this is below the belt, as I would say, probably, because the actual camera angle that you see is actually up there. So I just wanted you guys to see some of this brickwork that I do with all of this jazz. So I'm definitely gonna be rebuilding it in the mind of which books I'm gonna read in the next year, because there are 1 or 2 series down here that I want to complete that I have. Like, there's like some trilogies down here. Specifically, there's Powder Mage all the way down here, and Michael J. Sullivan, the Riria that I want to read that are down here. Some of this, and I actually have a nice copy of Old God Emperor of Doom down here that I'm not sure if I'm going to liberate or not, but definitely something that I'm probably going to start doing every like 6 months or so, to think about, hey, are there any books that are buried down somewhere that I want to move? So I might actually start doing this as like every 6 months. I do a video where I rebuild Tetris. Might be doing it as like sprints or something. That'd be cool. Anyways, let's answer 1 or 2 questions. Back to some questions from Ryan from Seeking Stories. He asked, if you could try one food from a fantasy world, what would it be? And this is a question he stole from Christy Lewis, because she likes to ask this question. So I definitely would love to try Chuda from Stormlight Archive, because that just sounds like a great, I don't know, it sounds like some great street food type of deal that, you know, street food is definitely like, that's one of the things I kind of miss about Washington, living in DC, is you could like go outside and find some food truck vendors and stuff like that. I didn't live in DC proper, but when I had clients that would take me into DC for a week or so, I would take the metro in and then browse around the restaurants, get some street food or get some other stuff. It was good. I do miss the food. We have some stuff here, but not as much variety for certain. So Chuda, there's a few other things that I'd love to try. Just a day in a Hobbit's life would be great, because like they have like 8 meals, and it'd be great just to do that one day and get, you know, and then work it off walking back the other day. But it's probably just a lot of just variation on British fare, since Tolkien kind of based hobbits off of your ideal British Englishman, except more in the dirt instead of like noble and instead of like nobility and stuff. The next one, also from Ryan, is Middle Earth, Narnia, Hogwarts, or Roshar. And this is hard. Hogwarts is probably the last one, I would say, because I don't know, it'd be fun, but I've never been the biggest Harry Potter fan. Middle Earth might be fun too, because just like hobbits, again, what I said, hobbits are great. But really, Roshar has to take the cake. I think Roshar has such a wide variety of cultures to sample from that would be great just to do tours of Roshar, eat all the food, and then, you know, the opportunity to become a Radiant would be much more fun than any of the other like magic systems in any of the other worlds. I think it'd definitely be more fun than Harry Potter. Definitely be more fun than Middle Earth, where I wouldn't have magic. I'd have to be a wizard for that. Or yeah, Narnia might be fun, but it's just Narnia would just be one big party, which I'd get old, honestly. Roshar would be so much more fun. More variety. And then I believe there's actually another question. Oh yeah, Stephanie from Miss Richards Reed asked about which world I would probably travel to if I could, fantasy world. And I think going with this question, Roshar. Those are definitely some of my favorite worlds that I could go to. So I think Roshar would definitely take the cake as some place I would go to. Next one from Alan at the Library of Alexandria. This is a fun question. Why is Assassin's Creed Unity the worst game you've ever played? And there's a lot of reasons, because I agree with Alan on a lot of these things. One, the lack of guillotines. Like, that's obvious. You hear him talk about this all the time. There's one guillotine in the whole freaking game, but I think it goes deeper than that, because they spent so many hours. I was reading an article concentrating on getting the Notre Dame right. Even then, it's not actually right, because like they did it at the time period that it started, that Assassin's Creed Unity takes place. The big spire for Notre Dame wasn't actually there, but in the game it's there because they did some not crowd testing. What's the word? Focus groups, basically. And the focus groups were like, we can't tell it's Notre Dame without the spire, so they put it in there. But they wanted to make sure every brick in Notre Dame was correct. But in a game that, you know, you murder people, you slit open their throats, you stab them in the back, you got these things, you violently kill lots of people. They thought a guillotine would be too much. Like, the guillotine they even had was basically fade to black. Like, you didn't actually see the guillotine in action. They didn't want to do that. It's ridiculous. So stupid. There's also a lot of things in the game that, like, were nice changes from previous games, but they were implemented badly. Like, the parkour was really, really finicky and sensitive. Like, running after people, Alan's talked to me about this before, I think. Like, you're just, like there's a chair slightly to your left. Oh, I'm going to jump over that chair as I go through. The running through buildings, like the internal building parkour was a great idea. Like, hey, I'm just going to, there's these tall buildings. Instead of going over the buildings, I'm going to go through the building, go through this door, go out the other side of the building. It's a great idea. Just terribly implemented because it wasn't like, it slowed you down a lot to do that. It didn't even, it was still faster than going over the tall the 3-story building, but it was still just like, come on. The parkour was frustrating, essentially. I think the combat was okay. Like, I wasn't as frustrated as some of the things that Alan was, because I cheesed smoke bombs and stun bombs and some other stuff, so that, like, getting in a large group of people wasn't really, like, a big inconvenience for me, because I just cheesed it. Learned how to cheese it. What else? The storyline was barely engaging. I wish the storytelling in some of the Assassin's Creed games was better. Because honestly, I was playing 2, and I felt like I wasn't invested as I should have been in 2. Because, like, a lot of the times there's these huge time jumps in Assassin's Creed. Like, you do a storyline and then there's a time jump. And every time there's a time jump, I feel like they leave too much information out to keep you invested in the story. This one was still a big thing into that. I feel like they should have made it so there were more side quest missions that made you feel like you were more invested in the Assassin Order. I did kind of like the romance. I think it was done okay. Wasn't like amazing storytelling. It was okay. But just like the protagonists of Assassin's Creed games are notoriously annoying for me. Because it's like, oh, okay, another guy. Why should I care? And they try to make you care in this game, I feel like. But I think I was definitely cared more with Ezio than I did with this one. But like, and then the love story kind of helped. But Origins was okay. The storyline for Origins, I think it shouldn't have been about the main character. I think it should have been about the main character's wife. But that's my personal opinion. Next one more. Oh, 2 more actually. Both from the Bookish Drummer. Hi, Jake. What book has made you ponder the most, and what book has made you ponder the least? So ponder the most. Recently, Children of Dune. Just because Children of Dune is deeply philosophical about things that I was interested in. Like I was talking about with Johanna's question. And then the second one, which book has made you ponder the least? This was a hard question to answer. I'm like, what? I don't know how to answer this question. I don't know. Boxcar Children? Maybe? Recently, I would probably say Nightmare, because this was a horror book, and I'm not big into horror, so of course it's not going to make me ponder any. It's just, I don't like hating on Nightmare because it's probably a good horror book. I just don't have the wherewithal to see that it's a good horror book because it's not my taste. Don't pay attention to me when I beat on Nightmare. It's just because I don't have that many books that I read that I don't like. So. God Emperor of Doom. This is the one I was talking to you about. I think it's dope. Cool colors. You see the worm. Spoilers about what the worm is. But it's really cool, really creepy. It smells great too. Editing Pete here, trying to do the camera thing with the hand instead of just setting up an entirely new angle. But yeah, this is too long, so I'm cutting in 2 parts. Next part will be out shortly. This is the end of the first part, and like, subscribe, all that jazz. Books are down below, Booktubers are down below, Discords are down below. All that jazz is down below, so check it out. Have a good night, get some rest.